conversation with the governor of Kericho County, the Honorable Dr. Eric Mutai. Governor, let's begin with that story that we've just seen of what's happening in Kitui County. The EACC, in fact, that's the boss of communication, saying, look, we actually nabbed these people. They're taken to court, they're released on bail, and they are back to work and continue to do the same thing. This, I'm sure, is not only in that one county. This is a story that we hear from various other counties. When you came into office as governor, did you encounter some of these malpractices?
Well, I would say that it is thriving not only in counties but even national government. The focus may be on counties, but even national government, they have the same problems. But of course, two wrongs can never make a right. I encountered such. When I came in, first of all, you are coming with a different attitude. And I remember that we struggled with guys. I even remember one who had a baby number that along a street called Tengeja Lane. So our officers could go because they're working under him, they collect revenue, then they come and give him directly. He goes and bank to his own personal baby.
What?
I tell you, it's just that terrible. But of course, we sacked him and we chased him away, and so many other things that we do under the ground. And not only even within the revenue collection leakages, even within health facilities. You can imagine the people in charge would steal even up to drugs. We came face to face with persons that as soon as we supply our drugs to the hospital, with a very big, we procured 57 million when I came in. And I tell you, as soon as they are there, people are waiting with pickups to take government medicine to their own private clinics with a serious cartel. And of course, we stop them and we kick them out of service. What I'm just saying is that, to tame and to work with corruption, it has to be intentional. And it has to begin with the top leadership. There is no excuse that, as a leader, you cannot have an excuse that these things are happening behind my back. The people elected you to do that job. And you must then create institutions. You may not get 100%, but you must demonstrate in both content and character that you intend to get the best for your people. Because the level of revenue leakages that we have in this country, in both national and county governments, is at a very bad rate. And this explains how our bad manners has stopped the country from moving forward. Because now we'll cry we don't have money. But even when good people and good Kenyans are paying taxes, it gets into the pockets of few individuals in a syndicate. You will be surprised that the government may not even be aware that this thing is happening. Unless you have a whole system of government and you are run informers, an informal sort of system that you have. And again, unless you have the willpower to be able to come out and say, I stop this. Because I tell you, cartels fight back. When I ran on Kericho, and I told contractors who were doing my hair that I'll not pay you. If you consider an ECD classroom, go and stand next to that ECD classroom.
They come and inspect it.
And then we come and check it. And they could recoil, and they have money. And they can chase you out of town if you are not very careful. But we stood our ground, and we only vetted what we call eligible bills. And I can tell you, I'm one of the first counties that after we received our money from the December, because counties have not received money for the last 4 months, but don't received our money because I knew there were fellows and guys who did their job and you need to inject money to the economy out of the eligible pending bills. I was able to confidently pay 150 million just this week because these guys did a good job. But those who never did a good job, I told them you not see a penny from the county government of Kericho because we must give value for the money. I visited one at a place called Chepsiri in Kericho, 45 million water project, and I almost collapsed because a contractor has put in something smaller than even a bathroom, and underneath is wood here. Underneath there is no water, and he has already dug trenches to instill pipes. And I asked these guys, so you were putting these pipes to supply which water from where and to where? And it has consumed 45 million Kenya shillings of taxpayers.
But here's the question then, Governor. You see, this is a private sector contractor, but the contractor is obviously being supervised by county officials. Every step has to be supervised and approved. A box has to be ticked that yes, they've actually hit this threshold and another threshold. That means that your own workers are the ones who are colluding.
I'm saying, when I found this, because I was on Achiwa, of course, these are things I inherited.
Yeah.
So when I went round and I found that, I now gave out instructions. Who was the supervisor of this work? Which was the members of the evaluation team who actually okayed this job. What happened to them, I don't want to tell you what happened thereafter.
And I can sense the frustration because you say it has to start from the leadership.
It has to.
From the top, a leadership that is determined to crack the whip and to push back on corruption and to go into with a clean slate. I have heard very many other leaders speaking and expressing their frustration. Recently, we even just heard the president's advisor on economic affairs saying the president himself sometimes gets frustrated. The former president spoke at some point and said, look, we have systems in place. I have what support do you want me to give you? My office will extend all the support. But the structure in the civil service is the one that is perpetuating the corruption. So you have good intentions. You want to push back on corruption. But then your hands are tied. Am I not right?
You see,
how much you can do. You can't fire everybody in the public service. You've got to follow due process.
You see, well, you can't fire everybody. But I can tell you, when you have the intention, when you demonstrate this is what needs to be done, and you are on top of it yourself, let me tell you, if you're willing to make some people feel pain a bit, suspend some people here and there, do this here and there, create checks and systems, digitalize operations like in revenue collections, so that like in all our health facilities now, we are paying using M-Pesa, and you can't come in touch with money. We may not get 100%, but at least 80 to 90% there will keep the county surviving, because at the end of the day, human beings are human beings and they are mischievous. But then I still insist it must begin from the top. The problem in Africa is not about the presence of resources. Latif, the problem of Africa is poverty of leaders.
It's a leadership problem.
It's a leadership problem. You are the doctor there, you have heads of departments, you have directors, these are leaders.
Yep.
What are they doing? They should be giving a report every Monday when you get to the office. What is the progress of this? What is happening here? So that themselves, the chain goes down there, because you may not reach down there. Were you able to supervise that people attended work? When I took over as the governor of Kericho, first of all, I was shocked that fellows were arriving to the office at 11 a.m. And as they arrive at 11 a.m., they already have nyamachoma being roasted somewhere there. And they stay for 30 minutes, they go for their liquor, take their nyamachoma and go home. The day is over.
Talking about, the capacity to raise your own revenue.
Yeah.
Now, we know that there have been delays in disbursement of money from the National Treasury to the counties. 3 months. And this is what is also contributing to several workers saying that they will not be able to turn up to work tomorrow. This morning on Spice FM, we were speaking to the leadership of KMPDU, the doctors, and the clinical officers union. And they said our members in 8 counties will not turn up to work tomorrow because they haven't been paid. Kericho is not one of them. Yeah. How are you able to pay your workers?
Yeah, one of the things we did at Kericho, of course I feel for my colleagues governors, and this is the first time that devolution is facing a greatest test of our time, even as COG, because the last time the money was dispatched, for what we received some couple of a week ago, and I thank our chair, Weguru, for having fight for this seriously, is actually December, is what we received. So for 4 months, counties has not been able to meet their obligation in terms of salaries. In Kericho, what we did was we went into not a very popular process, because it comes into some penalties if it accrues, and we were able to enter into our conversations with some of the local banks, KCB for that matter, and we agreed with KCB on some terms so that they're able to manage our payroll. And for that, then we've been able to pay our staff at the 28th of the month, not less than 28th of the month. They have their salaries. In my view, I said we may get some penalties if it delays further. Yeah. But again, we cannot have government punishing its own people. These good people are waking up in the morning. I say we are demanding services of them. We are doing performance contracting in Kericho to have people, evaluate them based on their jobs. Even as you push the civil servants to work hard. Remember that they are waking up in the morning and they are commuting to work. They have children to pay school fees. They have loans and other obligations to pay. They need food. Some of them are living on rental houses. So I thought, like, we can take the pain as government, but at least cushion our employees from this hazard so that at least they keep moving. So, and that's how we've been able to survive in Kericho. And so when we received last week or the other week, around 527 million basically which was meant for December, I was able to sit back again and I say, now that I've managed the salaries, what next should I do? Children are home, parents are struggling with school fees, and I took that as a priority to actually pay out 167 million Kenya shillings for bursary to be able to keep children in school and be able to make them survive and sit for exams, those in the university, and even those in day schools are able to keep the schools afloat. And once done, I was able to also say that the biggest other social responsibility is health. And so what do we do next? Let's pay suppliers for medicine, because we have this small money, we clear the arrears with suppliers and procure drugs for the next 3 or 4 months, so that in case of tough times, at least our people are able to get medication. And those, the vulnerable, because they can't afford private hospitals, would be able to walk into the dispensary in the village and be able to take medication. So it's been a game of survival and balancing. And I picked 150 million to pay contractors, the legislature bills, you know, because at the end of the day, we also have to inject some money into the economy to keep circulating within town and make people have a life. So I can tell you, it's the most difficult time for governors this time.
It's a juggling.
It's a juggling. You can't sleep, you do a lot of math to survive, because it's the most difficult time of devolution. And yet again, the president has this goodwill to assist county governments. We sat with the president, and he's a fantastic president. We sat with him for 2 days at Naivasha. I think the first ever retreat between governors and the president. And he had outlined how he wants to support county governments. And at that time, we had the debate of the shareable revenue, that we still need some more money in the counties and all this. And of course, we had the most ever productive discussion. But you see, the government is broke, and now things are there. But again,
is it?
Yes, that is what the deputy president indicated. I've had the handlers of the president saying the same. But what we have always asked is that in the same measure that you are saying national government is broke, it cannot be that you will collect revenue and pay salaries for the national government, and we have also civil servants in the county government. So if it is broke, let it be broke for everyone, because it cannot be broke for this other arm of government and it is good for the other arm of government. And so we are saying then, even as the national government is collecting this money, let us also prioritize the county government. Because if we move this way, I can assure you that the future of devolution may be a bit in a bad shape if we will move this direction. If we will continue in this phase, and then I can tell you, devolution will be frustrated. Because right now, county government is becoming the less attractive for people to work there.
Your Excellency, how much is Kericho collecting in terms of own source revenue per month?
Own source revenue. I think we've struggled to boost our revenue, and cumulatively we are struggling to look into a total of close to 800 million this by the close of this financial year, which is an improvement from around 400 million that we had collected last year.
So about 800 million shillings per year.
Yes.
Is the collection.
The collection, yes.
And this is coming from now market fees,
market fee, the car parks, the hospital, the land rates, and other revenues.
Okay. There's a bill that has been proposed in the National Assembly, and it's reported that it came after a meeting of the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, where governors sit, the Deputy President is the chair, the CS for the National Treasury, the Commission on Revenue Allocation, all of you sit in this. And this bill is seeking to check how county governments impose new levies and taxes. And it proposes that every time a county government wants to impose new levies and taxes, it should send that proposal to a team where the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary and the CRA and others sit. So for them to approve before then you can do that. What's your opinion on this?
Like I said, we've struggled with devolution in this country. And I believe the understanding of devolution has escaped the minds of many and the spirit of the Constitution. I mean, I just want to imagine that you are telling me that if I want to collect revenue, I've identified a stream in Kericho. Like there are some maybe factories that have been taking, transporting their tea without paying taxes and now imposing a levy tax, then I need to queue in the office of the CS for Treasury to be given approval. That's nonsense. Because one, the vol units have the first line of oversight, which is the county assembly. And that is where the cabinet, the treasury of the county government generates actually financial bills, which is taken to the first line of oversight, which is the county governments for approval. The county government operates just like the national government. It has its own figurehead, which is the governor, the deputy governor, and then you have the ministers, and then you have the chief of staff, which is equivalent to the PSS, and we have a functional county assembly. So what this bill, I've not understood it very well, and I'll still try to understand it, is that how then can you rob away an independent entity in performing their constitutional mandate? Nonetheless, we are preparing an fiction party of devolution and constitution.
I think this is an eviction party.
Maybe we are.
These are the signs of maybe. This will be the intention.
Some of these things are strange to me.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even when you say there was a meeting somewhere there, how then would you sit to perform an illegality? The oversight, by the way, Parliament does not oversight counties. It is Senate that has the responsibility of oversighting counties.
Yeah.
The responsibility of having and strengthening devolution is Senate. And trust me, we have a very superb Senate in this third cohort. And I've seen the work they are doing and their interest in guarding devolution and even strengthening devolved functions. So what we are saying is that there is a law that clearly indicates what county governments can levy and tax.
Yeah.
And for example, the county governments cannot tax on the VATs, income tax, and all that.
Yeah.
But there's been controversy, like in the mining industry, and even the tea estate I have. There's been controversy on the same. Because it says that, the law says that the county government of Kericho and Bomet, for example, and Nandi, are the custodians of the multinational tea estates. If you are the trustee, then why would national government want to levy what is under your hands?
An income tax from them.
An income tax from them.
It should be coming to you.
Yeah, it should come to the landlord. Then now you choose how to behave with them through and together with the county assembly.
Then you share it out.
Yeah, and that is why we say the first line. We do public participation. Whatever is related goes to the county assembly, because the county assembly is the first line of oversight. And that's what the constitution efficient.
Your Excellency, what's the solution, in your view, to this current financial impasse?
One, we will not run away from this, that no matter how broke or rich the national government is, it must meet this obligation. You know, one is that it is law that indicates that the shareable revenue at given time is not below 15%. And it didn't say this should happen based on the condition of the national government.
Yeah.
You see, I'm the governor today, I may not be the governor today. President comes and they will also go. But at the end of the day, what is scripted in the law, and if we want to strengthen devolutions and make them work, is to live within the spirit of the law. And you know, it's not only in Kenya, but across Africa. If you go to South Africa today, we have the regional governments in South Africa. Yeah. We have the federal states of Nigeria. And they all struggle through the same things, you know, because there's a feeling that when you make devolution work, maybe this and this can work. But I can tell you, even this cutthroat competition we have in Kenya today, if devolution was working properly, you would not be seeing sufrias in the highway. Because one is that every county government would be struggling to meet the needs of its people. Look at it, close to 90% of agriculture is devolved. If resources could fully follow that function, then county governments has a critical role of ensuring food stability and security in the country, because that is a wholly county function. Health is fully devolved. If resources could follow fully to health, then the county governments could be dealing with these issues. Which means when people now want to run around with sufrias in the streets, they will be running around in specific counties and not in the national government.
Asking the specific county government.
Asking the county government, why are we hungry? In the states, for example, when you meet the governor in the states, he's really a governor, because he's controlling the metropolis and everything, and even decisions and laws pertaining that state is that very serious. And you will see then that there's a sense of stability. So if we must also reduce the cutthroat competition in national government. You see now the conversations back and forth. Like one thing, we need bipartisan decisions.
Yeah.
Then after a minute, the Azimio folks are saying, we don't need this bipartisan, we don't need all this, we want to go to the streets and all that. You know, all this is a fight for resources. But if we're able to make government and devolved functions really work, it could cut the cutthroat competition at the national level.
It's a silver bullet to all these problems.
I tell you.
Let's get back now into Kericho and into the matter of the large-scale tea plantations.
Yes.
It's a hot potato issue. You formed a task force and you told them, look at the issues that have been raised by the residents of Kericho County. Look at some of the issues that have also been raised by these investors who are the large-scale tea plantations in the area, and see what can come out of it. Several recommendations. What is the main, in your opinion, the main recommendation that came out of this task force?
Maybe just because I had mentioned something about this bipartisan talk, it's good as a leader to talk about this thing. And tell the country that I've always talked this to our youths, that I'm a politician and I know. Many times politicians fight for what benefits them. And when we take these youth to the streets and demonstrate, at the end of the day when they die, in the process of these demonstrations, their blood is used to irrigate the wallets and fathom the wallets of the rich. You'll just be part of statistics, and they will mourn you in a sublime way. But at the end of the day, when they achieve finally to get the handshake like what Raila did the other time, it becomes their business and not these guys on the ground here. I'll give you an example. When the Azimio TV saying that they want to go for demonstrations the next week, they resume to demonstration along the highway. Kennedy, the son of Raila, is the son of Kalonzo, is somewhere in Ayala earning some good salary. The family of Raila Odinga himself, the Azimio leader, almost all of them are in parliament and they are in some good job, and when an opportunity comes to get one to Yala, they get their own children. Now the peasants from Kibera there are brought out to the streets to march, and their blood will be used to irrigate the rich. So what we are saying is that sometimes even as a nation we need to step back and agree that what needs to be sorted out by leadership, we don't also use innocent people to become defenses for what we want and have them in bad shape. And of course, the insincerity in all negotiations. You remember when I come from Kenya Kwanza, and you'll forgive me for this, but I stand to be correct. At the beginning of all these negotiations, they were saying we need dialogue on the UNGA to come down. UNGA comes down to 159. Then after UNGA comes down to 159, there's a quick shift. There's a quick shift that we now need to do this outside parliament. So you begin to ask yourself, what is the sincerity behind this? And I can tell you, without a blank an eye, that this is not about the people. It has nothing about the suffering masses. It's about politicians seeking relevance. It is about Raila Odinga, it's about Kalonzo Musyoka, and it is about Martha Karua seeking relevance in the political scale. And maybe, perhaps...
What does relevance mean?
Political, my friend,
have
when you have been in power for all these decades, and all of a sudden you wake up, there is no askari to open the gate for you, and there is no driver for you, and there is no fuel for you, it becomes traumatizing for other people. And people need relevance to continue surviving. And perhaps maybe in this kind of pure presidential system, what was not captured very well was that what do we do with this opposition leader who also has a critical mass of following? Perhaps when they could be in parliament, they could be able to articulate their issues very well there. But anyway, that was not a debate for today. What we just call on is that let's begin to imagine that this nation is bigger than all of us, and accept that even when we dialogue with clean hands for the purpose of taking this nation forward.
Do you want them to, do you support the call for dialogue? And if yes, how do you want the dialogue structured? In parliament or outside parliament, that includes Wanjiku and others to come and express their opinion?
Let me ask you, do Wanjiku has a problem? He doesn't have a problem. He's not even aware of these things. He's only aware of campaign vehicles telling them come out to demonstrate. It is not about you, Eric, but it's about politicians. And in my view, we have structured systems in constitutions for discussions. One of them is that we have a legitimate parliament. It's not a parliament republic. Why should we go outside parliament? This is not Somalia. This is not Sudan. We have a functional parliament with functional speakers, and conversations can take place inside parliament. Not unless there is other conversations that we are not aware of.
Dr. Mutai.
Yes.
You know how the national phrase Wanjiko came about?
Yes.
The former president was pushing the same argument.
Yes.
You know what? A constitution can be written in parliament. Wanjiko does not need to be disturbed with these matters. And the people said, no. The constitution has got to involve the people. And that's how Wanjiko came into, because Moi used the term Wanjiko. Same thing that you're saying now. I mean, we have a parliament, yes, they can discuss, but what's wrong with the people of Kenya participating in those discussions?
And I've asked you a question, a pure question. Do the people of Kenya have a problem?
Are they hungry? Are they feeling the high cost of living?
Is then having a Kofi Annan discussion able to feed people? It's about creating sustainable economic structures. Let me all these things, and I'll tell you, is just a paradox of getting power. It is just a way of trying to be relevant. It has nothing to do with the same people, the same actors whom I was in primary school, and they were calling in for constitutional change. When I was in the university, 2007, during that, after that, as very good students, we were also panning up on fire that we need to reform the constitution. They reformed the constitution. When 2000 happened, when 2002 happened, the goal was that let us defeat Moi. Moi was defeated, so what happened next? We went back to the same problems. So it has never been about the constitution or anything, but it has been about leaders struggling to get their cake, bake it, and take it home without the people.
Selfish interests.
Selfish interests. What we need in Africa, one, is to accept that democracy works in this way. We have this constitution, and democracy has it this way that the winner takes it all. And if the winner has taken all, we all voted for this constitution. For those who voted, it took the president. Raila Odinga himself, the Azimio leader, was the one pushing for this pure presidential constitution. And now when we have it, when it doesn't work our way, you don't need to scream. You just need to accept that I push for this thing. It never worked my way. But again, very important is that in Africa generally, we need also to mature our democracy for us to move forward. I tell you, I've been to places like DRC where you see abundance of resources being taken away by the West because of failed leadership in other countries and other nations in Africa. And if Africa must rise, then we must decide that we accept democracy to be the order of the day. So that if today, Latif, we are competing with you and you win the elections, we accept that you won the elections. Because one, the elections were contested at the Supreme Court, they made their ruling. It is a constitutional body. Whether you like it or not, it has spoken. But then again, as we do that, we need to move away from this nation. That it is either the ballot or the bush. That if I don't have my way in the ballot, I go to the bush. When I look now into the formations of Azimio, tell me what's the difference with an organized system of civilian militia revolution? You see fellows dressed in jungle jackets, and you hear the vibes of the music. I am a communications person. You hear music like Sisini Cheshila Papa, and all that. And you get the heat coming out. And then you see people being prepared for a revolution. And you hear then that we're going to do this revolution, we are going to do this, and this kind of toxic conversation. We so much play around about this nation without looking into happening with our neighbors like Sudan, DRC and others, whom their beautiful countries has ended up in flames. So it's really my appeal that as leadership, we begin to think that it is not really about us. We will come and go. But let's think about our people, the generations, and the future of our children.
All right. Into the tea plantations issue now. That task force that you formed came up with the recommendations. Among the recommendations was, of course, let's look at mechanization versus employing people. And it even recommended some percentage in a split. 60% of mechanization, but 40% at least that human beings are going to be employed into these farms. The welfare of the people who are working in those farms is something that was also discussed and recommended. The issue of land tenure. Initially, the land tenure for the large multinational tea plantations was 999 years. Of course, set up in the colonial days. The National Land Commission came and gave an order and ruling that this should be revised, all land to be 99-year lease. Question number one, when the NLC recommended a 99-year lease or ruled for a 99-year lease, when does that lease begin? Is it from the initial date of registration of this 999 lease, or is it from the date of the ruling by the National Land Commission?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. First of all, we understand that as county government, we've been in the forefront struggle for repatriation and, of course, for justice to be done to our people. And before we broke earlier on, I had wanted to indicate to you that the land belongs to the Kipsigis people. And, of course, the land was taken through genocide. But as it is now, the land belongs to the county government of Kericho. And NLC has spoken that we are the landlords and the multinationals are the tenants, and I say thank you for that. Now, talking about the leases, of course, when the new constitutions came in, it rendered, there were things about land and all that, and it rendered null and void some of the earlier colonial times. But I think it took time for NLC to cassette. Personally, when I took over office, I had several meetings as status. We had several meetings with NLC. We had several meetings with Land Commission, and we raised some pertinent issues, including the leases. And we said, for heaven's sake, in Africa at this time, how can you lease a land for 999 years? That is pure slavery in our modern time. And NLC agreed with our conversation and our petitions that it be removed to 99 years. This does not only apply to Kericho, but all the other farms across the country. Yeah. And secondly, the take home is the fresh MOU. For me, the directions by NLC that we do fresh MOUs in terms of leases with multinationals was something for me. The question I asked the multinationals when I took over office and the NLC is that where is the title deeds of this farm? You want to imagine in Africa in this century that you are a trustee of a land that you don't have a title deed. Title deed is a sense of identity. And we talk about land, it's not just land for saying land. Land is a factor of production and a factor of identity. And so I demanded for the title deed and the lease agreement to understand how is my relation with the tenant. Suppose, even in marriage, when you want to divorce, there are clauses that guides you on the same, because sometimes some marriages may not work. So in the same context, I wanted to understand what is our lease agreement. And I tell you, it was shrouded with controversy. So some people in the previous regime in lands, and I don't want to mention names here, signed and negotiated leases in the dark. The county government of Kericho was never involved.
What do you mean by this?
What I mean, remember that Ekatera, for example, was earlier on called it was called Brookbond. It has moved to an animal called Unilever. From Unilever to a group of, Ekatera is like a Shylock. It's a CVC holding.
It's a holding company.
CVC, that's again, like I say, it's a Shylock. So this Shylock came and they get spectate, realized there's a farm called Ekatera. And what they did is that they did their own things, signed the agreements, but first of all, before the handing over from Unilever to Ekatera, we were living in a new era of the new constitution. The people had to be consulted that we are changing hands. Do we allow us to bring in a new person to lease? What are the terms? Because at the end of the day, the interest of the host community must also be catered for. Not really to say that we cannot lease out the land, but how are we going to benefit from the new owner? I'll tell you this. When Brookbond was owning that tea estate, when Unilever was owning, things were better in Kericho. Leaders used to be called and agree even in terms of the rates that they are going to be paid, and the mayors then could progressively agree as the Kipsigis people on how they are going to work on the rates. When now CVC Holdings Ekatera came in place, they distanced themselves from the people. They had nothing to do with the people, and they sent to us now a CEO in that tea estate heading it, called Sylvia Tiende, a proper representation of the former white supremacist.
How so?
This is one person who, when she landed over, she made sure that she looked for mistakes and kick away top directors within Ekatera. And as we are talking now, In a team of some directors close to 9, there is no single director. One was called Mutai, he retired. But as soon as they retire, they bring in, I'm not saying that it's wrong to bring in other communities, but I'm saying this is a host community. At least have 1 or 2 people, even in corporate, for example, like what it used to be in Brookbond, so that critical decisions that are being made, they understand the topography of the hosting community and how they can help them. And I can tell you today, as we are talking, Ekatera, in top directorship, Sylvia has made sure that there is not one single director. And I'll tell you why. Reason being...
So not a single director
from the local community, the Kipsigis community.
From the local Kipsigis.
The Kipsigis community. Do you know why they are doing this? Because this is a Shylock. You know, after the PPC scandal, the farm has been devalued. And I know, because I hear that they had said some 3 years they will sell it, they would want to sell it. So they want people that they can easily control so that they sell it to whoever they feel and not necessarily involve the local community. That is my thinking, one. I don't know if it's speaking an hypothesis, but how else would you explain
it's speculation?
That? Maybe, but how do you kick every director within the local community? The management trainees, of the 9 management senior trainees, that the management trainees that they have there, that they recruited sometimes last year, only 1 is coming from the local community. So my question was, what is the use of this cow? You are plucking with the machines, you are doing all these things, and you have a cow that you are not milking. You're just taking care of it, and you are seeing the milk being taken away. That was really that. But then, in terms of leases agreement, NLC has directed that we sit down and draw a new MOU with them. And so we have written to them, expressing that we need to sit down and do a fresh MOU.
What does a fresh MOU mean?
What does it,
like
we've never had
fresh
a
lease?
We've never had an MOU before. So in this case, the landlords would be able to draw a lease with them, a proper lease now with them. Not only Ekatera, but all the other madrasas.
All the. Yeah. So the land is owned by the community, held in trust by the county.
The NLC made a clear ruling. We were in court some times back. And NLC made a clear ruling that the county government of Kericho and the county government of Bomet are the trustees on behalf of the Kipsigis people of this particular lands.
Okay.
So we need now to draw an MOU with them.
So you're the ones who are holding the title?
Do you know what? Yeah, we are supposed to do the title.
Land.
Yes.
All right. Do you have the title?
We don't have the title.
Why don't you have the title?
And that is why I've written to NLC to ask them, where is the title? Because I've written to them, where's the title? They don't have the title equally. Okay. I suspect that, and it will be very painful, even this century, the title this is still being held at England. If it is, it will be very painful. But we are waiting for them to furnish us with the same. Because
are there records in the lands ministry that show the proper and clear demarcation of these lands, the boundaries for these lands, and the acreage?
I don't want to speak for the Ministry of Lands. We went there personally with Governor Bomet Parchok and Governor Sang. They have no records, nothing. Even leases, even title deeds.
So you don't know how much land you're actually holding,
and that is why
of the Kipsigis people.
It is what they have been declaring in terms of the rates they have been paying, that they say this is the amount of land. But in my view, they under-declared. Because looking into the old boundaries, they have stretched the boundaries. And that is why the second item, which was of importance to us, and NLC rolled on the same, was a resurveying of the land. And if you check the cassette notice, that was another petition we have made. Earlier on, we had wanted to resurvey, they went to court. Then I asked them a question, this is the landlord. The landlord is simply saying, I want to check the aggregate that we have. For the purpose of rates, maybe you are under-declared, or maybe you are over-declaring. Then why do you go to court? But we made the petition, and NLC made it clear that we resurvey the land. And I'm happy, by the way, after forming the task force, it was part of the discussions they had, and I want to give it to them, that for the first time they are beginning reasoning. They are not very stubborn, they are beginning to engage, because we had there some black supremacists who are worse than the white supremacists in form of directors and managers there. But now they are also coming to the table and they are agreeing with what we are saying, that let us resurvey. And so we are putting this in our supplementary budget. We're doing a public participation, take it to the assembly, and then we do a resurvey. Should we, the NLC further made it clear that should there be an excess of the land, it should be surrendered to the county government. But importantly, you had talked earlier on about whether you want us to subdivide it into the Kipsigis, which I think Latif was a very important question. We don't intend to subdivide the land. This is a global village, right? So what we are saying is that, first of all, there's a group called Talai Group, and they have their farm LR number 025, which is in a place called Sampret. And we don't know why there's been contestation, but I'm happy the LSC and the Ministry of Land has cleared us to resettle the Talai community there.
In this particular
land, it's 2,500 acres of land. And the Talai community has been ostracized before. They've never had land, and they have had a lot of historical injustice. And maybe, as the governor, it's my prayer that within this period that I'm in, we'll be able to resettle them once and for all, and we finish that story. But then, should we resurvey this land, and you're able to get an excess of maybe 5,000 or 10,000 acres, then it means that this company has been under declaring. And what it means is that this will come back to the county government of Kericho, and probably we can even lease to you, Latif, and we condition, after public participation, the process of that farm, that this goes either for passery, or maybe healthcare, or maybe for water, to benefit the people of Kipsikis.
You know, when you talk about all these, the slant in the conversation is only the multinational, large-scale tea estates and tea plantations. But all the tea plantations in that are not only for multinationals. There are some big, locally owned tea plantations. Do they have titles?
Within Kericho?
Yes.
No, within the larger plantations, when you talk about the multinationals, this is purely multinationals. And you don't find private individuals there, except for some part of James Finlay that is owned by the Mao Group. It's called the Mao Tea Farmers Group, which I believe they don't also equally have a little tea, but maybe they are an agreement with them. But when you come to other parts of Kericho County,
it's mostly the multinationals.
People have tea, private holders. Even me, I have my own. Even if there's 1 acre, it's still tea. And other hustlers, they have their tea. And even other people with big farms, they have their title teas.
Are there Kenyan large-scale tea plantations?
In Kericho?
Yes.
Except for that, I told you the Mao Tea, and now Kaisuku Tea Estate, which of course is owned by the former President Moi. And I think we've never had even issues with Kaisuku.
Does that one have a title deed?
Unless I'll find out. But in terms of how there's been responding to us, of course, it's part of the lens that we'll be looking into in terms of title. But generally, they don't have title deeds because we have asked them, because they are within Kericho County and we're the trustees, and we have asked them about the title deeds from the Ministry of Lands, and they don't have it. But why we've not been having a lot of battles with Kaisuku is because at least they employ people. And they listen to us when we call them. But these other ones, wamekuwa na kiburi kidogo, and that is why we've been having a lot.
So you're trying to now rein them in and bring them to line and to order.
To understand that it's not about the governor of Kericho, but it's about the host community. Let me tell you, in DRC, for example, the gold mines, 40% remains within the locals. But in Kericho, the gold mine of Kericho is the tea. The capital is made 200%, and nothing remains in the county government. Balt is almost zero. And that's why we've been making this conversation, that we need to understand how we benefit from this. But I'm very happy, like I said, that we have made tremendous progress with the task force report. Because when we had our task force report in place, even Nandi had the same. They've been able to engage. They've had the recommendations. NLC has responded to some. 21st of this month, after the report, we have identified a technical team. And again, I'm happy because for the first time, KDGA has responded. KDGA is an umbrella body of them. And so they'll be having an engagement on this 21st with a technical team now to isolate what needs to be done, legislations, what needs to, an agreement to be struck there, they do it. And however, again, give it to them. At least we've had some meaningful employment. Like the past 2 or 3 weeks, Ekaterra was able to employ like 3,000 fresh people to pluck tea. And there's been that conference. Even today, they were sending me another advert. And I think there's that kind of response.
So there's movement now.
There is movement. And that's why you see, we've not been so much on the media, we've not been making a lot of noise on this, because at least there's boardroom is yielding in some discussions. But of course, there are some other areas, of course, which still remains tricky, and you're pushing for the same.
So as I understand, Governor, among the areas that you're pushing for when having this conversation with the multinationals is, number one, understanding the acreage for purposes of land rates.
For purposes of land rates, yeah.
And how much then you are getting from the land, from
Correct.
the leases.
Correct.
And number two, to understand what other benefits your residents of Kericho County
in terms of social responsibility.
Social responsibility and employment.
Correct.
So then brings us to mechanization.
Mechanization.
Mechanization is the way the world is going. But the people around Kericho, around Nandi, have really been pushing back on mechanization. In fact, even the unions themselves have also been really pushing hard or back on mechanization. What is the issue against mechanization? If it's what's going to make the Kenyan tea still marketable and competitively priced?
That is I come from, I own tea even myself. And I can tell you, first of all, in the world market, and you can do your research, the best quality of tea is hand-picked tea. Now, when you talk about the world is going towards mechanization, which world? In Sri Lanka, they are doing hand plucking. In India, they are doing hand plucking. The presence of multinationals, these same multinationals, in South Africa, they had problems. And they had to leave their tea plantation and leave the country. But of course, what we are saying is that we are not refusing the fact that you need to mechanize some sections of the farm. But what we are refusing is 100% mechanization.
Why?
Because remember that people also draw livelihoods from this tea plantation. And I said before, if you're not doing this for them, you're not doing this for them, why deny them then the chance of even plucking or even putting fertilizers across the farm and they can get something? Because at the end of the day, as a multinational investor, you also care about the local environment. And my specific interest, some years back when you come to Kericho, around 2007, 2008, 2010, and behind, Kericho was the hub of business. At 11 p.m., businesses were up and going. When you go to a butchery, you could slaughter today, and by tomorrow it's done. But today is the opposite.
Why?
Remember that at 2008, and the excuse they gave that time after post-election violence was that the people who were plucking was coming from Nyanza region, and therefore, because of post-election violence and all these things and other regions, the Kipsigis were not plucking. So it was just an exit plan so that they could bring in their machines. But the argument I made with them is that even if you want to reduce a change, you do it systematically. When that happened, you cannot imagine the number of children that were left unattended to single mothers. Because a husband and a wife has been plucking tea. Overnight, you are told, forget. The man has not invested anything at home because these were casual laborers.
And they were being housed
they take home and they go
estates.
home, leaving the children, their mothers here. And again, and I'll tell you the secret, the mechanization is a cartel of the few rich. In the sexual escapade of PPC that you saw the other day, some of the named characters there who are former managers here are the ones that have taken the contract of mechanization to employ people. Out of this, they reduce the wage bill as they make millions out of themselves. And that's why I'm telling you, it is a profiteering cartel system, which is not about mechanization, but about a rich cartel that try to enrich themselves at the expense of the poor masses there. They used to argue that the locals cannot black. They tried it 2 weeks ago. They advertised for 3,000 jobs. More than 20,000 people turned up as early as 6 a.m. in the morning. So I'll tell you, there's a balance. Even the national government, within the Ministry of Labor, they argue also within their law that it is a 40% of human blacking or 40% human labor and 60% of mechanization. And so the argument is saying, we have even other areas that you cannot harvest with your machines, right?
Yeah.
But you need human blacking. You need other interventions like the spread of fertilizers. They used to, they reached a point where they were actually spraying the tea plantation using planes. And that is planes, you know, from the academia. That explains why cancer is so prevalent in South Rift. And maybe after this we'll take another conversation with them. Because they were spraying chemicals from there.
Using the dusters.
From there. And you see, the biggest prevalence, that's why now I'm struggling to build a cancer center in Kericho. The biggest prevalence of cancer now is in South Rift. And studies have revealed that there is a close nexus between those things that they were spraying there from up there in the atmosphere and people inhaling them. Because these are profiteers. They want to get their 200% profits and they go away. They don't care about the local people. It is just pure capitalism. And we are saying then, much as we are black, but our blood is red and we are not black in our souls. Treat us with some sense of humanity and dignity. So let's have these people pluck, and I'm happy they are beginning to employ.
So they already
already there's engaging. That's why we keep it fairly to them, that there is a good negotiations. There are some which has already behaved, like James Finlay, and we still looking forward to listen to them. Of course, the corporate has informed me that they're having plans to recruit, and we are looking forward for them to do the same. So that my target is that if we can have close to 20 or 30,000 people getting back to work, it means there will be people to buy in town, there will be people, villagers,
So economic activity.
Yes, that's my pure concern.
Which brings me now to a final question.
Let me tell you,
there's been a conversation about Kericho and Kericho town wanting to expand.
Yes.
But there's no available land for expansion. Explain this and what's the solution?
You see, just in the border of the town, Kericho, on your left, when you're driving, the town is in a small space. The rest of the space is occupied by the multinationals. And so when you want to expand town, there is no way we can expand town because the entire of this jungle farm is occupied by tea owned by the multinationals. At some point, I was irritated that they are paying us a paltry land rates, and there's occupied space, and the land as a factor of production is helping us. Then why can't we have then the 1,000 acres and we do our economic zone and industrial zone there? And I can tell you, even with this survey we are doing, beneath what we can get out of it, I'm very sure we'll be able to cut 1,000 acres, which will be able to have our economic zone for Kericho County Industrial Park.
So is the strategy to expand Kericho within where it is, or to move Kericho to build a new Kericho?
You see, from where we are, when we have 1,000 adjacent to where the old town is, that is where we'll have the unity, the homes, the 10,000 affordable housing program run by the president. That is where we'll have universities, we'll have institutions there, we'll have hospital facilities, and of course we'll have now industrial zones. Because look here, we've had conversations with so many investors, both locally and across, and they are willing to invest in Kericho because Kericho has a strong economy. Most of the people there have tea, they have coffee, and they have milk, and they can purchase. And many people are willing to invest in Kericho. But the struggle has been, where then do we get the space to expand town? We need an airport in Kericho. So that, because now we are moving, in fact, there's a conversion I'm making, and we are saying we want to do even our own auction at some point for the Kipsigis people in Kericho. Because it doesn't make sense that in 21st century, we still need to go and auction our tea in Mombasa, which was a colonial way of doing it. Why can't we have
a tea auction
in Kericho, and we market our own tea, even as we push our farmers to cottage industries to do the royalty tea and all that, and we create a big network within the Kipsigis land where we can export our own tea. And that explains why we need an airport, because we have coffee and farmers now going into flowers and all that within Kericho County, and that space would help us to grow our town. However, that's not limited, because we also have parts of a place called Soin, and we have written to Moroni, which has been cultivating close to 100 acres. They plant sugarcane in a farm, not 100, close to 3,000 acres. And they don't pay the revenues in the county government. So I've written to them to forget the land, so that we can now earmark that for the bigger exporting zone for development of our county.
Governor, we've talked about all these issues, and thank you very much for answering the questions. Final one, how would you assure Kenyans who are listening that this entire conversation about land, about demarcating the land that is under tea plantations and then seeing what else goes into the local community, the Talai will now finally get some thousands of acres as community land, how can we assure the people that this is not also an underhand scheme to actually grab land?
No. One is that very realistically, it's not really about grabbing land. Of course, we have land in Kericho. That is not the only space we have. We have other lands, like I told you, we have 3,000 or 4,000 acres in other parts of Kericho. And other parts, we have so many county parcels. But Kericho is ideal because we want to grow the town. We want to grow the headquarters. We want also to build even the county headquarters. We want to build new county assembly. We want to create offices. We want to create a new city of Kericho, which out of manufacturing industries and industrialization will be able to create opportunity to employ most of our youths. We cannot continue being like what we were so many years ago when the space of global world is moving forward and investors are looking for places to invest. So this is purely not about an individual, but it's about the future for the county government of Kericho and for the people of Kericho. It may not be realized. It may be realized now. It may not be realized now. But at some point of time, in the fullness of time, it will be realized because the Kipsigis nation must also develop and compete with the rest of the counties and other places competitively globally, because we are blessed with abundance of resources. It is a rich agricultural zone, but we are still moribund because we have not opened space for other investors to come and do cottage industries, add value to what we have, and be able to create a vibrant economy.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
His Excellency Governor Dr. Eric Mutai is the governor of Kericho County. He's been our guest this evening, discussing the various issues, national and, of course, focusing as well on Kericho County. Thank you for watching Newsline tonight. My name is Eric Latif. Have a lovely evening.